Welcome to the Friday edition of Wines World, and I'm taking a little stroll today, as I did a year ago, in preparation for a seminar I was giving in Battambang on fieldwork. And I was walking down the street, as I am now. This was the video that I showed them, and I asked them, "What do you see?" Now, if you're Khmer and you see this, you kind of shrug your shoulders and say, normal stuff. You know, if you're a foreigner from the United States or from the UK or Europe or Australia or whatever, it all can seem very strange, particularly if you're a newcomer. Traffic may be odd for you, for a start, but also just what's on display. So I'm going to take the same walk, more or less, today, but it's a year later. Not much has changed, and I'm going to just give you a running commentary again and maybe make some comparisons with the last time. So let's get moving on that. I'm going to begin inside my apartment. You've seen bits and pieces of it, but I'm going to show you the whole layout just so that you have a little bit of a better understanding. And we'll start here with my desk, and this is where I spend anywhere from 10 to 14 or more hours per day. And it's a nice spot. You can see that it leads out into one of two balconies that I have, and it was a nice sunny morning. It's about 7 o'clock when I took this, and then let's move along. We're going to see next my little totemic collection of odds and ends that I gathered here and there, just memorabilia, and then my new television, which they put in just a couple of weeks ago, and now my kitchen, which is my oven, all my pots and pans, and my supposed dining table with my food processor and lots of stuff, and my work area with knives and whatnot, and then my stove, and also more pots and pans, my induction burner. And then up the top here, all of my various sauces, including Asian as well as British sauces, and then my spices on top of my fridge. Okay, so now let's go out. This is the corridor outside my apartment. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm on the first floor, and down to the ground floor. And we do say first floor in Cambodia for the one above the ground floor. Then the lobby and out into the parking area, and there's the security guard. And normally I would turn left, but I'm going to turn right here because I want to show you something. My street used to be a pretty destitute street, but it's come up in the world. But there are still a few shacks, and here's my neighbor doing his washing up from breakfast, and you see here he's also making some cockles, that's right, using a wood-fired stove, no electricity, dirt floor, corrugated iron shack. That used to be pretty much the whole of my street at one point. So I'm going up to a cross street. My street is a really isolated street, but the next one over is a main road running north-south. and that's where I want to get to. So I'm going to go down this cross street. There are 2 or 3 of them that cut across from my street to the main road. And as I said, this is about 7:30 in the morning. You can see vendors are out selling things for people's breakfasts and also for their lunches, because a lot of people pick up their lunch on the way to work. And as we get closer to the main street, you'll see more and more people selling food. And what I want to do, I'm going to contrast what I'm doing now at about 7 o'clock in the morning with what it was like at about 11 o'clock in the morning, which is lunchtime, strangely enough, because people usually start work in this area around 7 o'clock, so 11 o'clock is lunchtime, 11 to 12. Then they knock off usually about 4 o'clock. So, nice sunny morning. You can see hard shadow. You can also obviously see that I'm going west with the sun in my back, so that my shadow is in front of me. And now we're coming up to the main street, and I'm going to turn left here and go down away, and this pretty much replicates the stroll that I took a year ago when I was preparing my fieldwork lessons for the seminar in Battambang. And what I was trying to say earlier was that if you're Southeast Asian or even East Asian, this won't look too odd to you. The things that are happening, how they're selling things, what they're selling and so forth, will look pretty much like regular. If you come from Vietnam or Thailand or Laos, southern China, it'll look pretty much the same. The writing will be different. People will be speaking different languages, but generally the same. Okay, so here's a breakfast spot on the left, totally empty because on weekdays you're not likely to find too many people hanging around at this time when they're trying to get to work. Weekends more, or maybe some older people. Here's a laundry, which I never use because I've got my own washing machine. I would have used it if I hadn't had a washing machine, but it's a nuisance to keep dragging clothes, especially because I change my t-shirt in this weather. We get up to about 34, 35 degrees each day, so I wear about 5 shirts. Just passed a guy offering me a ride on a motorcycle because he wants to make money, and he thinks that foreigners don't like to walk. And he asked me in Khmer, and I replied in Khmer, I like to walk. Joljit da. You can see the traffic's not too bad for a Friday morning. Could be worse. Fairly sparse actually. It's going to get thicker as we get further down towards the main part of the shopping area. And we're more or less coming up to the exit where I would normally come out. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like now. And then we'll cut away to what it looked like at 11 o'clock. Okay, so I'll go down here, just take a little look, see it's deserted. Like nothing happening. Nobody selling anything. People cutting across, may need to get up to the main road in the north. Now we're going to go back down. This is 11 o'clock, and you can't see just yet, but now here we are. Okay, so first of all on the left is a watermelon seller. A watermelon, very popular these days for lunchtime. And then another builder. A little further down, you can see the umbrellas are up. On the right there is a sugarcane press that presses out the sugarcane liquid, and then you've got women selling various kinds of snacks, and then back to the main road. So at right around 11 o'clock, everyone from a nearby factory will pour out into this street, and they will buy up everything that those women are selling: eggs, sandwiches, fruit, everything. There's a builder's yard that opened up between last year, when I made the video, and this year. A car wash place. People like to wash their cars pretty much all the time. You don't see dirty cars on the street much, if at all. Now, coming up on the left, there's an empty lot which is going to, I'm sure, have a building on it at some point. But right now, at this early time in the morning, there's just one solitary woman with a few snacks. You see her there on the left, just selling some breakfast foods. But then we'll come back at 11 o'clock, and now there's a guy with a grill, and he's grilling chicken and fish, and he's got pots of rice, and there's the woman again. And now back to 7 o'clock. And this section doesn't have much going on. Yeah, you've got a coffee shop. I think this is quite popular in the early morning. A pharmacy that is really big and never has anything that I ever want. Whenever I go there and I say, "Do you have this? Do you have aspirin?" "No." "Do you have losartan," which is a beta blocker which I used to use? "No." So I don't go there anymore. Now here's an interesting place. They produce blocks of ice. You can see them here on the left. There's these long blocks of ice which they carve up either into blocks, or they put them into a crusher, and they make crushed ice, which they put into sacks. And the blocks people use for ice boxes, like old-fashioned ice boxes like they had in the 19th century. Here's the woman who used to be here, still here, doing her fried pastries, and more rice and stir fries and so forth on the left. And coconuts. Now look at how many coconuts are there. They'll use all of those coconuts in one day. When I come by every morning, there's a truck delivering coconuts, and they go through several hundred every day. They just knock the top off and put a straw in, and you just drink the juice from the coconut. I don't know many people who actually like scrape out the coconut meat. They just drink and go on, and it's about $1 per coconut. Now here you can see a vendor who has got crushed ice in sacks, and he's now selling it to the various shops along the way. Very, very primitive. Now we've got some more like fruit and vegetable sellers. There's a woman with a bicycle selling pears, and this is a stir-fry place on the left here. Now some fruit, some dragon fruit, and some avocados, and some melons. Don't see this time around. You don't see any of the women lying, or I should say sitting on the pavement in this spot. I'm not sure why. I don't think it has anything to do with legalities. So more coconuts and more fruit and veg. So still about the same amount of fruit and vegetables, just more in actual stores rather than people just sitting on the ground. I'll have to find out why that is, whether there was a crackdown at some point. When I lived in China, there came a time when a lot of the street vendors were arrested by the police, hauled off, and their equipment hauled off and confiscated. For whatever reason, the government just decided they didn't want people cluttering up the streets, and so they just rounded them up and hauled them off. I don't think that happened here, but I don't know what exactly happened. I'll have to ask about it. Now we'll go a little further down. You can see again there are there's a little breakfast place, also empty. There might have been some people there earlier, but you'd have to be there around 6 o'clock maybe to see any people there, because work day here begins 7:30. This is a general store, cigarettes, sodas, candies, whatever. It's a clothing store, more food, breakfast food. You'll also notice that there are many empty tuk-tuks. I don't know how the tuk-tuk drivers make a living, because they don't get they're not like a cab driver in New York, constantly busy. I mean, they're mostly just standing around doing nothing. Okay, now some more. This is a fruit stall with an overhead fan. Very unusual. And some more. There's a stir-fry place as a sidecar on a motorcycle. Now here, this is charcoal. This is a charcoal burner who's packed up charcoal in plastic bags to sell as cooking fuel. Very common. As I've said before, it reminds me an awful lot of Dickensian London, where you've got ice cellars, charcoal burners, meat hanging outside. It used to happen in England, certainly when I was a boy, to have the meat hanging outside, especially in the covered market in London. In Oxford, it doesn't happen anymore. Okay, here's chickens, a woman butchering the chickens, and more breakfast foods, and children's clothing. And now we've got fish and shellfish. There's prawns and river fish mostly, and some chickens as well, and plenty of fruit and vegetables. Fish is probably the most common protein in Cambodia. It's the cheapest. A lot of people do their own fishing. And another breakfast / lunch place, more fish and vegetables. Yes, and there's monks out collecting either money or food from the various people in the streets. And Friday morning is an excellent time to do it, because there's a lot of activity, and so you see a lot of monks. I've got several shots of them here. Although I'm not going to show them all. There's we are. It's more meat, pork and chickens and sausages, and more sausages, and that's all of the sauces. Any sauce you want, just like on the top of my stove, and more fruit, and so on. So there we are. I'm gonna cross the street and go back. And meanwhile, if you like my videos, please subscribe, tell your friends. I'll be back on Tuesday with a recipe. Not sure what yet. I haven't thought that far ahead. I barely made it today. I couldn't really quite envisage what it was I was going to do today until I decided, yeah, I haven't been out for a walk for a while, so I'll go out for a walk. So have a great weekend.